Everyone hear me all right? All right, I appreciate everyone's support, our community members who have shown up to just show your support for the work that we have collectively been doing to fight for justice for Aidan Ellison. My name is Kayla Wade. I'm the Logistics Director of the Southern Oregon Coalition for Racial Equity, or SOEquity, and I'm just going to kick things off today to just kind of share where we're at right now, and then you're going to hear from Aidan Ellison's mom, Andrea, and then from Justin Rosas, who is the victim's right attorney representing Aidan's family. So we're here, as everyone knows, because a terrible tragedy happened in November of last year that for our community felt like a shock, and it felt like something that doesn't happen here very often. But what we've seen in the resulting months is that, unfortunately, the way that this case has been handled, the way that Aidan's family has been treated, the way that people in our community, including our law enforcement and our local media and news outlets, have handled this in a way that is really typical, and it's not something that's new to this area. And what I mean by that is that we have been working to bring light and to bring awareness to Aidan's case and to make sure that Aidan gets justice for his untimely death. And at every step of the way, we have had either representatives from our city or from other parts of our community telling us that this is not a big deal, or telling us that race was not involved in this matter, and that we should just let it go. And unfortunately, that's something that the Black community hears all of the time. We are constantly told that our issues don't matter, that our struggles don't matter, that our lives don't matter. And frankly, we're tired. We've been tired. But now we finally have an opportunity to make some actual change. And so that's why we're here today. We're here calling on the rest of our community to join us in this fight, to show us that our lives matter. Like I said, Aidan's death was a tragedy, and our hope is that something like this doesn't happen in our community again. But what we've been seeing in recent months is an increase in hate symbols, in acts of discrimination, in acts of oppression, in acts of hate crimes. And if we don't take action now, those things are only going to keep increasing. Our Black community is only going to keep feeling unsafe, and what we want to do is make sure that something like this doesn't happen again. And so that's why we are working to form a bias response team so that we can do what we've been saying this entire time and start leading by example. We hope that we can get to a point where our community just naturally takes charge and prioritizes our lives and our struggles in a way that is meaningful and is actually trying to create change. But until that happens, we as a community, we have to take matters into our own hands. And so that's why we are forming this team. That's why we've gathered our local news here today. We have some calls to action, but before we kind of get into those specific pieces of information, I want to give a chance for Aidan's mother to share her thoughts. So without further ado, here's Andrea Woffford.
Thank you all for coming out. I really, really appreciate this. I want to talk about white lives matter. Basically, since we've been here in Oregon, we have been treated really bad, and I don't want to waste your time about it, but the ending of it is with my son. So my questions are, at the Stratford Inn, I was just kind of wanting to know, did anybody hear any noise? If his music was playing loud, did anybody hear anything? If there was a gunshot, did anybody hear anything? And why, when I called the police several times, no one called me back? So basically what I want to say is, have a riddle for you.
follow up. I'm Justin Rosas, and I'm a local attorney, and some of like the most important moments of my year and the best moments of my life, honestly, have been going into this grief with Andrea. Have been taking the time with Kayla to drive over to Klamath Falls and spend time to hear these individual experiences, the shared experiences, and the individual experiences of racism that Andrea, Kayla, and our entire community feels. This summer, in response, we saw a lot of George Floyd's murder. We saw a lot of local officials say, there's not racism here, not in Jackson County, not in our institutions. Then, but 5 months later, 6 months later, where are we? We're here. We're dealing with the tragedy where a young, vibrant, black kid was murdered. And what was the reaction? We don't see racism here. It's time to start educating ourselves so that we can see it where it is. And to that end, today, we're announcing a few lawsuits and also the creation of this team. The lawsuits that we're announcing today are against the murderer, and I'm not referring to him by his name. This is about Aidan Ellison, but we will be suing him. We are also announcing a lawsuit against the Stratford Inn to find out why nothing was done about a white man who had been sent to batterer's intervention by the court and banned from owning firearms was allowed to go into the lobby and make a noise complaint, and the noise complaint was the concern of the inn, not the man who was banned from owning firearms by the circuit courts in the state. Why was that the focus? Why did this have to happen? We're also announcing the formation of this team, and I'm calling on our community to join this team. Why do we need this team? Well, when I went to meet with Ms. Woffford, when I got there and talked to Andrea, nobody had contacted her about, really law enforcement's contact of her had been minimal. Attorneys, my own profession, had not stepped up to try to fill the void and do the things that would be necessary to help her with her civil claims and remedies. I did not see doctors stepping up to agree to do medical evaluations of Aidan. I did not see investigators agree to step up and go take statements. I did not see financial advisors come in and say this is how to prepare for the next steps. I didn't see any of that. I saw a woman struggling, alienated, unheard, traumatized, beaten down by her community, and yet what was she? Graceful and loving. She welcomed me into her home. We have to do better, and you have to do better. And I'm talking to every single person, and myself is included. So the formation of this team, and we want you to go to Southern Oregon Equity's website and social media to contact us, to contact me directly at my office. If you're a person that's willing to volunteer whatever talents you have for situations like this, and they happen more often than Aidan Ellison's murder, and they happen on a daily basis, we need to be addressing it holistically and fully as a community. So I am calling on the professional community and everyone to agree to lend their talents to a team that will be able to help our community push back. It's time to push back. They're organizing, they're at the Capitol, they're everywhere, and we need to be professional and push back. And I'm also challenging the reporters that are here today. I do not share the opinion that the press is needless. I believe you are incredibly valuable. I believe that the press in this country is important, and I also believe the press, like attorneys, have serious issues with racial bias and implicit bias. And I think this case serves as a good jumping point because we saw some of it. And we saw retractions. So I am calling on the local media. I am calling on you to individually, as stations and as outputs, to do a series and report on and improve your own implicit bias and systemic racism in your institutions. I am calling on you to commission investigations and series that you can show to the public on the history of racism and racial injustice in the Rogue Valley and in Jackson County. And I'm calling on you to do a series on the bias in the other institutions, the professions, the legal profession, the financial profession, the lending profession, medical profession. I'm calling on you to do a series on the systemic bias in those professions in our valley in order to show the public and help educate the public. And I believe it is a good thing to challenge the people that are here today, even though I know many of you are supportive. And I hope that you will challenge me too. It's time that we challenge each other to step up and quiet the voices of racism that we hear so loudly and amplify the voices of love and care and community that should be at the center of our discussion. Thank you.
Everyone, we'll spend a little bit of time answering any questions that the media or anyone in the community might have right now.
Yeah, can you speak more to these lawsuits? What are they for exactly?
Well, we're suing the murderer for murdering 80 people. So in that way, it is it's a civil wrong as well as a criminal wrong. And I think I should speak to that. So the reason why we need to file lawsuits and form a team is because we don't expect the criminal justice system to fully account for the racism in this situation. And it's important that we lend the efforts that we can to make sure that we even that score. With regards to the Stratford Inn, obviously, the murderer was allowed to live in the Stratford Inn with a firearm. He was allowed to make a complaint about someone else's noise, have that be central, and not his own violation of the law and violation of court orders. And to that end, we need the business owners and people in this community to know that if you act recklessly in a way where you support racism and racial injustice in our community, we will hold you accountable.
The murderer bought the gun at Spy Mart in Ashland. If that's the case, why aren't you suing them?
So the question was about where the murderer purchased the gun. To be honest, I don't have verified information about that yet, and this may not be the end of everything that we're doing. Part of what will occur is that we will get more discovery through this process and be able to ascertain the other people that need to be held accountable in this situation. And unfortunately, one thing I think everybody should know that's a real problem here that Andrea is speaking about is she's kept in the dark. She's not given a copy of police reports in a situation like this. She's not given access to that sort of information. She's held in the dark. And how re-traumatizing is that experience to a crime victim, especially when there are reasons to be suspicious of the institutions that are withholding the information.
So I'm just wondering, with the Stratford Inn lawsuit, is the negligence just that they didn't perform any sort of background checks? Or?
Well, at this point, I think it's best to just say the suit against the Stratford Inn is because of their recklessness in allowing a man who had been banned from owning firearms to live there, and then allowing his complaint about another person's noise to be central to that dialogue rather than the fact that he had a gun in a hotel and was banned from doing it, and they did not address that. I believe there may be other ways in which the Stratford Inn was reckless, and those we will discover through this process. But clearly, that is reckless, and clearly that contributed to and caused this situation.
Was there knowledge of this weapon prior to the incident, prior to the homicide?
I can't speak to specific facts yet. What I can say is that I have information that many of the employees of the Stratford Inn, including those who cleaned this gentleman's room, and including other staff, were never interviewed by the police department. And so we will find that information out using the civil process, in some ways because we have to. That should all be known to Andrea at the time, and it isn't.
Question. How did you get knowledge of his history of violence?
It took me about 3 minutes. Actually, it took me less time than that. So, and that was disappointing about the original reporting. If you have a OGIN, the court computing system for the Oregon courts, is available in public. You type in this gentleman's name, and this murderer's name, I should say, and his history comes and is available for free to any person. And if you did that, you would be able to see that he had multiple restraining orders against him that were founded. He also violated the court's restraining orders. He was ordered to undergo a batterer's intervention program, a special program for abating consistent domestic abuse, and he was given a Brady notice banning him from owning firearms. And that information is accessible. I mean, it would take a minute and a half essentially to pull up that history in his free public record. And I can get those records to anyone that wants to email me later. The other thing I think that we all wanted to say that we have not said yet, and I just want to put it out there, is that we want to know this will be an ongoing process, and to that end, there are some events that are coming up. So, Kayla, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. So, as Justin said, this is an ongoing process. The community is an ongoing process, and continually making sure that we're prioritizing the right things and the right person, and that person is Aidan Ellison, is something that we are absolutely trying to do in every step of this process. So this Saturday, we will be holding a Celebration of Life event that is open to the community. Information is on our website at www.SOEquity.org. If you want to drive in at a location that'll be emailed to folks who register. And the goal of this event is to bring community together, to prioritize our Black community, to show love to one another, and to celebrate Aidan's life. And it'll culminate in a drive-in where everyone is playing music in their cars, because what we want to make really clear is that that's not a crime, and that's not worthy of dying over. It'll be streamed through KSKQ, and we want to encourage anyone who isn't able to physically make it to the event to tune in and to play music and to honor Aidan on Saturday at 2:30.
Next week, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, there's some pretty substantial events that we'll be streaming. I believe they start at 2 p.m. I know that information can be found on a number of local community organizations' websites, including BASE. So I really believe this is a moment to promote the grieving event on Saturday, the learning event next Monday, and then we should be back here in 2 weeks talking about the number of people that have volunteered to be a part of this team.
So, in addition to volunteering
for the team, is there a way we can continue to directly financially support Aidan's mom? Is it still the same GoFundMe, or?
Yeah. So the question was, are there other ways to still support Aidan's mom? The GoFundMe that was set up is still live. A link to that is also on SOEquity's webpage, and there's actually a list of calls to action on our webpage. We have an entire page dedicated to justice for Aidan, where you can financially support Aidan's family. You can buy t-shirts that have been made, like the one that Andrea is wearing, and there will be another t-shirt available with Aidan's image on Saturday. And yeah, we really encourage folks to continue doing those individual calls to action as well.
This is for Andrea. Hi, I'm April. You and I stuck on the phone. Oh! Hey. I was wondering, what do you hope happens as a result of this lawsuit?
I would hope that it would bring attention to the injustices that are going on among fighters. Okay, it's really sad that, like I said, it's just, why is there so much silence? Why is it okay? Why is it like, when I read the news, it was in the paper, it was like a man shot. And that was my 19-year-old son that was shot. It would have been swept under the rug. I know somebody was speaking out that window as a stranger. I about a few weeks ago. I looked out of that window, and I'm like, nobody has seen or heard anything.
But this is something that is going on where it's like, okay, just keep it under the rug.
It's not okay. Stop.
Speak out.
Don't be a group cat.
Are you surprised with Ashland Police's statement yesterday about the update with the case?
I think that what we have seen is the Ashland Police Department struggle to figure out how to communicate about this, to figure out how to properly investigate this. I'm not going to sit here and vilify every single person. Certainly there are people that I have respect for, but at the same time, this is a situation that they should have been fixed a long time ago. And, this is a situation that should have been addressed more seriously a long time ago. And, of course, disappointment in assigning a detective who's getting ready to go out of town. Disappointment in not spending much time talking to the mother of a victim of a violent crime. Of course, disappointment. Of course, disappointment over the fact that the first statement isn't about another crime against people of color. Another time where the lives of people of color are diminished. So, while they seem to be doing work, it is disappointing repeatedly. And and Chief O'Meara knows this. I challenge him to continue to grow and to grow faster and to treat this as his biggest priority and not just one of many things that's got to go on. People are disenfranchised with the criminal justice. I'm a criminal defense attorney predominantly, right? People are completely disenfranchised, no matter what side of the system they're on, with the criminal justice system in the United States. We know it. It's in the streets. It's in the news. It's in everything. So, is it time for the people that are supposedly parties to that to step up and do the work necessary to change that? Absolutely. And are they big enough? No way.
Andrea, how is your family doing?
What's really heartening is that I have one son that was murdered physically, and then I have another son that is murdered psychologically. So every day I'm dealing with that, and he's trying to cope the best way that he can. He's only 17. So, and the rest of them, my daughter, she doesn't talk about it. When we do talk about it, she finds a peace to try to, accept it. And my other sons, angry.
How are you?
I'm a lot better. I've gotten over the anger. But because I still have to stay forward for Aidan. But other than that, what can I do? What can I do? I can't bring him back. I just don't want it to happen to someone else's son or daughter. And swept under the rug.
Which of some oversights that Ashland Police have made in this investigation? Have you considered them as a defendant in another case?
Of course, considered at this point. Trying to work with the Ashland Police Department, and we're trying to work with the federal investigators that have been assigned to see the work that they do. They've made commitments. We want to see them honored, and we appreciate the commitments that have been made. This case now has an FBI agent assigned and a United States attorney assigned. We appreciate the commitments that have been made by the district attorney to oversee this case personally. We appreciate the commitment made by Chief O'Meara to try to do better and investigate this case in the right way and call on the people that he needs to do. We're going to give them the time to honor their commitments and see how that goes. And there's big reasons to distrust whether they're going to follow through on those commitments, and Lord knows knows we'll be here if we need to be. But we're going to hope that they honor those commitments. And be watching. Don't worry, I mean, not just hope, but also be holding them accountable if need be.
A little more to the civil remedies team and how that's going to work and what the goals and the plans are.
If we recognize that in the state of Oregon we have a 400% disparity in incarceration between people of color and white people, then we can't rely on the criminal justice system to fix it, right? So as an attorney, I can defend individual people for crimes, and that is me doing my part, I guess. Really doing your part means using your professions, all of us, to step into this sentence and change that score. And to that end, there are all sorts of civil remedies in a situation like this. There are resolutions that we call on city officials, and some of them have already contacted me to say we want to help. But there are resolutions that can be passed by local city governments. There is action that can be taken to study the law enforcement response. There is action that can be taken to federalize hate crime investigations. There's action that can be taken to make sure that you already know how to look into a person's background for racism, and you don't have to call on other people to come help you to do that. And there's so many actions that need to be taken. So what can we do to even the score in the meantime while the system grows or tries to catch up? What we can do is start to make sure that we show up at those city council meetings, that we have city officials who agree to make those kinds of changes, that we have investigators who can go out and take the statements that maybe aren't being taken right now by the criminal justice system, so that we can sue business partners to make sure that everybody doesn't just get to claim to be like, I don't see it. All right, see it. We're here. I don't know if you guys were out in Rogue River this summer. I don't know if you've been around anywhere. It is here in this valley, all over this place. And so see it and know that you are seeing it, and stop acting like you aren't, and don't be reckless and let down the community by standing in a place of blindness. And that's what the civil team is going to do. We'll be there to file lawsuits. In this situation, there's donations being made to a family. Where's a financial advisor that has this idea in mind, who's stepping up and saying, I'll do this work for free. I'll help you figure out how to manage this, to grow this the best way possible. There's so many elements of this. And that's what the team is going to be. I mean, from my end, I will be here every time this happens, if need be, to file civil lawsuits, because that's what I can do as a civil remedy. But so many people have talents that can contribute to that, and that's what the team is.
The real irony is that I was born the same year and the same month of the civil rights movement, and look where we've gotten.
Because of Oregon's history, do you believe that with the civil lawsuits that perhaps Trump sympathizers and positions of power with Mr. Trump?
Sure. I mean, I get phone calls all the time at my office saying the right things to me. I expect there to be interference. I expect to find allies. I also expect to find interference. I agree. Selecting a jury in the Rogue Valley, which I've done many times, you have to be ready to do jury selection and voir dire about issues of racism, or else your client will lose. And that is my experience. And so it's present in every jury pool for my entire career. And I have had to go, and there's not local training, on how to do that appropriate voir dire at our public defender's office. You have to go to training somewhere else in the country. You have to seek it out, right, in order to be able to do that appropriately. And how many people are represented by attorneys who don't have that training, right? How many situations develop in our justice system? And that's why I have a moral responsibility to stand up, and so does I see some other attorneys, so does everybody else, right? It's not about me. But we have a moral responsibility to stand up and say, we've got to even that score and fix it.
There's no more excuses. If you take away anything from today, there's no more excuses to sit idly by. Racism is not just a black issue. It's not just an issue for people of color. It's a white issue. And it's an issue that every single community is affected by, and it's an issue that is the responsibility of every single person in this community to try to solve and to fix.